Welcome to On the Rise podcast. I'm Matt Ricker here today with Dan Correa from the class of 2015. He is the VP Private Banker at JPMorgan. Dan, thank you very much for joining us today.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So today was a great day. You were able to talk to some students here about financial literacy, and it was a great workshop. So thank you for coming for that. I know the students got a lot of great things out of it, and they asked a lot of great questions. So we do appreciate that. But I want to start with your Iona education. So tell me a little bit about your Iona education, your journey, how you got here.
Yeah, so I came in 2011. I think I was undeclared when I first came in, and I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do with my life, as many students are. And I ended up, choosing what I thought would be the most practical thing for me, something that could help me in the world, regardless of what I did. And to me, that was finance. So it wasn't any kind of passion for it at first, but just something that I thought made sense, something I thought was the biggest bang for my buck in coming here. And my family and parents were going to afford to pay for school, that I might as well study something worthy of studying. So I ended up studying finance and had a great time here. Great experience here. Really valued my connection with professors here. Particularly those who ran their very interesting businesses outside of school and took the time out to come here and teach students. It was a great experience. I still have a number of friends from my time here that I keep in touch with to this day, and we're all, getting married and having families, and it's fun to see everyone grow since then. And I was also blessed to be able to study abroad when I was here.
Oh, that's great. Where did you go?
Ireland.
Ireland
in sophomore year. Still keep in touch with all them, and it's been great. It was a really fun time here, very rewarding, very great community. It's exciting to see all the expansion and investment in the school. It's awesome to see. So I'm happy to be back.
That's great. Yeah, I'm sure when you entered LSB and you saw the extension of the original building and the complete renovation, I'm sure it was mind blowing. Yeah. So, you started here at Iona in 2011, you graduated in 2015. Let's talk about after graduation, about your career.
Yeah.
And, I know you spent several years at Citi prior to going to JPMorgan. So tell me a little bit about that journey.
Yep. So I spent a majority of my career at Citibank. Really, took the first job that I was offered out of school. I was working at a golf club shortly after I graduated. Got my first job at Citibank at the end of the summer. Ended up with a very basic entry-level position in wealth management, being a client service associate for a team of financial advisors. And, spent a couple of years there with a group of people I learned a lot from. Ultimately ended up transitioning internally into the private bank at Citi, which is, a division of the bank that's reserved for, advising high net worth families. Received really great mentorship there, and was blessed enough to be promoted a few times and have my responsibilities increase, have my aptitude increase in the space, and eventually transitioned to a role at JPMorgan managing my own book of business about 3 years ago now. So it's been a long journey. It doesn't seem too far long ago where I was here walking these halls. So it's funny to look back on.
Yeah, that's great. So you graduated now 11 years. It'll be 11 years this year.
That's right.
Looking back on your first year as an associate at Citi versus now at your current role at JP, what is the biggest unspoken skill that actually moved the needle for your promotion?
Yeah, I think maybe a cliche at this point that a lot of younger professionals get advice on is, to put their head down and work. And I believe in that, but I think it's also important, and it was important to me to have the right people notice that you're doing good work. And so I think it's easy to hide. I think it's easy to do great work, but not have it noticed. And so the ability to think of yourself as a brand, the ability to show off, flex your muscles a little bit, let the right people know that you're doing good work, is something that may be uncomfortable for some people. But it was important for me to be recognized, and on that end, I had great mentors that were able to show me off and really make sure that other people that could make decisions were paying attention to my good work. And so I think if you're working hard and working in a vacuum, it might be, I wouldn't say wasted, but it's harder to notice. And so that's something. There's a lot of great advice that are cliches, put your head down, work, network, things like that. But that's something that I think not everyone talks about that was super helpful for me, is just being your best advocate.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. So as we talked a little bit about this off air, the banking world in 2015 when you graduated was very different today. And now lots of fields, not just banking and finance, are being driven by AI. So how has your day-to-day workflow evolved, and how do you keep up with the pace of technology? And this doesn't necessarily have to also tie into AI, but just in general, all these years later.
Yeah, I mean, JPMorgan, invests a ton of money in technology in general to make sure that we're at the forefront of tech and AI, which is helpful to know that that's happening in the background while you're trying to, both use AI and compete against AI, right? All these different narratives that we hear. But I think, generally when I first came in, every single client interaction with a family was either in person or over the phone. Zoom was unheard of before COVID. Certainly, even after COVID, it was sort of an awkward thing to use. So just the use of technology to be able to get in front of people, to be able to have conversations and give them advice has been, use technology has been profound. In terms of day-to-day with AI, I mean, like I mentioned, we're using it more every day. It really helps me organize my practice in a way that I wasn't able to in the past, organize my thoughts, synthesize large amounts of information that I wasn't able to go through. It took me a lot more time to go through before, specific when it comes to, reading a client's financial statement or reading through a client's estate plan, right? We don't rely on the AI, but we use AI as a tool to synthesize pages and pages of information to give clients some good advice. So it's definitely evolved. It seems like it's evolving more quickly by the day, and I think overall it's a tool that we can use pretty effectively.
I was thinking at some of the tools, and I think this goes for everybody. So on Zoom, how there's that feature that you can start like an AI summary of your call.
Yes.
Sometimes I'll use that, and if I know it's going to be like an in-depth call with a lot going on,
yes,
I'll use that. And then it's not always 100% accurate,
correct,
but it's great because it sorts it by summary, by topic, and then by next steps. And I think that's useful for all fields.
100%. I mean, at the very least, it helps you pay even a little bit more attention to what your client or the person you're talking to is saying on the other line, as opposed to focusing on getting all the right details and writing notes. It's just a little bit more efficient.
Yeah.
It's something that you would have to probably you have to do later yourself in a way. So if technology can take care of that for you, then we're all better for it, I think.
So let's shift gears to, entering the workforce. I'm sure in your current role, you've literally looked at hundreds of resumes for both interns and employees. What would you say is one X factor that actually makes you want to interview someone?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, like the basics are super important just to get your foot in the door, like to a certain extent. The algorithms, or AI, if you will, kind of filter out a lot of resumes, right? Whether it's your GPA or a certain amount of years of experience, things like that. That's important. But for me, it's a couple things that I've learned over the past decade that have stood out to me as great candidates. One is leadership qualities. So the ability to get involved in different things in your community, not just within school, not just within a club, but off campus, to get involved with donating your time to maybe a less fortunate group, and to be somewhat of a leader or a speaker for that club organization is, I think it says a lot to me. It's something that I've been trying to do more myself in my career. And the other thing is to be well-rounded, right? I think we all, students, and certainly I was this way with, wanting to have the right experience in your resume, something that's, if you're studying finance, something that's relevant to finance. I need to have, 3 internships that are relevant to finance. And while that is helpful, I do, looking back, prefer to see a more well-rounded student, like somebody who has passionate hobbies, that is involved and kind of immerses himself in those hobbies and has different things to talk about in an interview setting that doesn't specifically cater to finance or wealth management or markets. It just distinguishes yourself on top of your great grades and your impressive background. I think the last thing I'll say on that is, don't put so much pressure on yourself to have so many different activities at the same time. Like, quality is better than quantity. If you're fully immersing yourself in 2 great hobbies that you are really passionate to you, that you know more about than everybody else, you have some sort of leadership quality or role within those hobbies, that says more to me than 5 internships doing the same thing for similar industries. That's just something that speaks to me a little bit more. So that's what I think is pretty important.
Even something unique like studying abroad, like yourself, I'm sure that helped you. It doesn't necessarily have to be study abroad, but, several other unique things that maybe not everyone gets to do all the time that can make you stand out.
Right. And even better if, like, a lot of folks study abroad, but what can you say different about your experience studying abroad? Like, what were you involved in?
What did you get out of it?
What did you get out of it?
Yeah.
Or were you just kind of like, skipping across the world for 6 months? So the context, it's important for you to be genuine within the conversation in the actual interview. You've made it past the first blockade of obstacles. And now you're in a room with the person. You get to show off your personality. You get to talk about your interesting hobbies, things that make you different. So anything that helps you separate yourself away from the pack, along with all the basic communication skills, GPA, it sets you up to, for a lot of success.
So let's move on to networking. So students are always told to network constantly. Looking back at the messages you received over the course of your career, what's the difference, would you say, between a cold LinkedIn message you ignore and one you actually respond to?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I am a firm believer that there's no kind of secret formula of words you can string together to get a foolproof plan for somebody to respond to your message, if you're reaching out to me or if I'm reaching out to somebody else. But there are some common things that I think that resonate well with me. One, it should be a short message, should be a respectful message, of course. But, not a very long kind of background of who you are and why you're reaching out, because people are busy. Everyone's busy with their own personal things. But I also think you can't overlook consistency in follow-up, right? A lot of students will message me, and that's one time I'll hear from them. And I always have it, in the back of my head, hey, I should probably respond to them. But, family gets in the way, work gets in the way. There's a lot of other things that are on my mind outside of that. And so even if I have full intention to respond to you, I still sometimes won't, or it will take me a little while to do that. And I imagine that's the case for most people. So some grace is important, some ability to follow up in a respectful manner with, some short messages. And when you do get someone's attention, I think it's really important to name the time and the place and the method, right? So, thanks for agreeing to meet. How does Thursday or Friday at 12 sound to you? Because that prevents me from having to go, try to find a time myself and do more work. And before you know it, I'm like, I'm too busy for this. So, I think don't be bashful about somewhat of a consistent follow-up. Be respectful, be short. I know you're super busy. I would just love 15 minutes of your time just to chat about your industry. I'm interested in wealth management. I don't really know much about it. Just wanted to chat about your experience and see if it's something that might make sense for me, to pursue.
Right.
And so I think that might make sense. So there's no like secret formula of words, but I think it's more like cadence and just being intentional about your message.
Yeah, I always tell students when they ask me about networking and how the best way to do it and is be direct in the messages, because
don't dance around it.
If you message someone and you say like, I'm looking to go into a career in finance, but you're not saying what you want to do, and maybe you're not certain, which is fine.
Sure.
But say I'm not certain,
right?
And then get with some times, like 3 or 4 different times that work for you, and hopefully it will work for the person that you're reaching out to.
Exactly.
So that you're showing initiative by you're doing the outreach, and you're putting the work in, and that goes a long way.
That's exactly right.
So let's talk about mentorship. So looking back to when you were a college student and even earlier in your career, how has mentorship played in your career development, and how have you sought out mentors throughout your journey? And I know you've been this is like a twofold question. Mm-hmm. You've been involved with Girls Go Further now for the past couple of years. Mm-hmm. Tell us about your experience with the program.
Yeah, I mean, both of those questions tie very closely together, because part of my motivation for donating my time to Girls Go Further and other kind of mentorship opportunities here is because of how valuable I see mentorship. I think it's not a typical thing to look for in your career. You don't really know that you need a mentor. You have this mentality of, I need to put my head down and work and impress the right people. But there are certain people in your career that will really, really take the time to make sure that you understand things, to make sure you understand right from wrong, that you avoid pitfalls in your career. And so I think it's a huge determinant of success to find the right mentors. And I wasn't looking for one, right, necessarily. So early in my career, I ended up, being paired or working closely with a stellar mentor. And I tell, students all the time, like, okay, what makes a good mentor, right? You have to know what to look for. And for me, that's a person that is one, highly successful in what they do, right? A lot of people want to maybe preach or give advice, but they're giving advice and then have never done it before. So it's got to be somebody that has just performed well in a role that you want to have one day. That's one. Two, they should be somebody that's well respected, both internally by their colleagues, by people you work alongside every day, and also their clients, right? People external. So I think when you pair all this together, you don't always get that perfect mentor, but you have different people in your lives that maybe fill one piece and another person fills another piece. And so for me, I had, a couple really great mentors that, took it upon themselves in their daily jobs as part of the responsibilities to develop me, to make sure I understood what was going on, to ask the right questions, to know how to take care of clients and give the right advice, to a point where I knew that I was prepared to be successful on my own. And it's hard. It's really difficult to get there without learning from the right teachers. Our professors here are great. The curriculum here is great, but nothing beats hands-on learning. There's a lot of information that comes at you day to day, and there's people out there that help you filter and synthesize all that information. So I can't say enough good things about having multiple mentors if possible. And I try to share the little that I know over the past decade I've been at a school with students that are in the same position I was 11 years ago.
That's great. So looking back at your time at Iona, what would you say your favorite memory here is? Is it the long days on the mock trading floor, getting your Bloomberg certification, or was it something else?
Yeah, I think, traveling in Dublin or living in Dublin was a very memorable. It was a great experience for me. Get out of my comfort zone, leave home for the first time, and a bunch of different emotions that, you feel when you do that. But closer to home, like, I just think it's a really close-knit community here.
Absolutely.
The nights at Beachmont are unforgettable. We had a lot of great memories there.
Yeah.
And like I said, like, I'm still really tight with a bunch of people that
That's
I graduated with. And so those relationships that you make, during this time when you're in school they're irreplaceable, excuse me. And yeah, I think just the overall experience was great. I think the relationships that I made here were probably the most memorable experiences here.
That's great.
Dr. Manley's class was probably memorable as well, but it's in the back of my memory.
Yeah, I like that. And now, were you in Ireland for a whole semester, or was it just over winter or summer break?
It was a semester. And I traveled a little bit at the end of the semester. But I know now we have a formal campus in Ireland, which is insane.
Yeah.
It's incredible the amount of investment and resources are kind of going into the school. But I would have loved to take advantage. It's a beautiful country. I think at the time we had, I think it was Australia for a semester program and Dublin.
Okay.
And it's like, I'm not interested in going on the other side of the planet, but I'll go to Ireland.
Nice.
And it was a great time. Beautiful country.
Yeah. For all of you study abroad students who are maybe on the fence about it, you have a nice testimonial right here. So if you can go back to your 2015 graduation day at Madison Square Garden, you're walking across the stage, and you could give yourself one piece of advice that would save you the most stress over the last decade, what would it be?
It would probably be not to put so much pressure on myself. I think how young you actually are when you're 19, 20, 21 is overlooked, and the ability to, you have a lot of room to make mistakes. Not saying you should be wanting to make mistakes, but you should be unafraid of making mistakes as long as your kind of brain and heart are in the right place. So I think I would say, hey, let's focus more on not doing as much. Let's focus on the two things that I really enjoy and putting all my attention into that. Because I think, one thing I've learned as I've gotten, more experience is, busyness does not equal productivity. And so it was important to me to show that I was busy and to show people that I was doing all these great things. But I think, it takes a toll on you. And I see that with students that I mentor every day. Like, one of my pieces of advice is, don't take your foot off the pedal, but just like take it easy a bit. I mean, it's a long life. It's a long journey. I even have to tell myself sometimes that, that sometimes now. Yeah. It's hard to unlearn, but that's one thing I would say.
One day at a time, right?
One day at a time.
So let's end with some content recommendations. Are there any books, podcasts, TV shows, movies that you would recommend to our viewers or listeners?
Yeah. It's always changing, but I think we actually chatted about this on the way. And when you cross 30, you start paying a lot of attention to world history for some reason and reading about the Revolutionary War. So I just recently watched Ken Burns's however many part documentary about the Revolutionary War, which is super interesting. My eyes kept making fun of me that this is like literally the most boring thing that she's ever seen. But it's a great documentary. I remember watching the Civil War documentary version of that in like high school and thinking like, I can't do this. But now it's interesting to me. So that's one thing. More daily. For those interested in like having an updated view of markets or geopolitics, Bloomberg Daybreak, free podcast every morning. It updates about 20, 30 minutes. I listen to it on the train into work. Just gives you a nice kind of sample of what happened the day before in the world and what to think about for the week. JPMorgan as like kind of a plug for JPMorgan. JPMorgan shares a lot of awesome content across markets and economics and geopolitics that is easily accessible for anybody who's a client or even not a client. Just it's everywhere. So that's stuff that obviously I read pretty often. There is a book that I have given to a lot of friends. It's called Awareness by Anthony DeMello, who was I don't remember when he passed away, but he was a Jesuit priest. It's not specific to, Christianity or any denomination. Anybody can read it. But it's a book about being aware. Mm-hmm. And it's very funny. It's very short. It reads as a dialogue because it's just his spoken words written down. So it reads very easily. It's a great book. I read it maybe once a year whenever I feel like I need some sobering up from life. And the last thing is Bible in a Year.
Okay.
With Father Mike Schmitz.
I have that. I haven't started it yet, but I've heard it's great.
It's great. It's a really easy way to kind of learn some wisdom from the Bible, regardless of, you consider yourself a religious person or not. There's a lot of wisdom in it. Day one, January 1st to December 31st, takes you the entire way through the Bible. It's a good way of learning the whole story and context, and it's something that I've listened to a lot. So,
yeah, that's great. Well, Dan, thank you very much for coming by today, for doing this podcast, for speaking to the students about financial literacy. I sincerely appreciate it, and for all that you do for Gales Go Further as well. You've certainly been making an impact, and we appreciate that as well. And I look forward to having you back again.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks.
And that's all for On the Rise podcast for this edition. I'm Matt Ricker. We'll see you next time.